We're here to talk to you about a class that we've been working on for the past year, which we've called Level 3 ESL with Computers. This is one of the Onramp classes that has been grant funded for the past year. When we created this course, we wanted to kind of help students deal with knowing that we have a lot of students who are interested in attending college courses or beginning an IBEST program. We wanted to address some of the concerns that they had about using technology in those classes. So we ended up looking at different syllabi from college courses and IBEST courses that are currently being offered at Seattle Central and in the Seattle Community College District. And this is what we found out. For regular college courses, students at Seattle Central need to be able to, now it's Canvas, use Canvas to access information and submit assignments online. They need to be able to create documents in Word and print and save them, of course. They need to communicate by email with both their instructors and with their classmates. And they also need to be able to conduct internet searches, including searches of internet databases, library databases. We know that many of our students in the ESL program right now are not capable of a lot of these things. A lot of them don't have much experience with computers at all. And in our program, we often take our students once a week to a computer lab. And I think most teachers have had the experience that there's a large number of students who really just have no idea what to do with the computer at all. So you'll ask them to type something and they'll ask, how do I get the words on the screen? Because they don't have experience with it. So we wanted to find a way to train them in some of these skills to make that transition to IBEST courses and to college courses a little bit easier. We also identified several IBEST programs that students had high interest in, but were having trouble meeting the entrance requirements for. So we wanted to train them so that they would have the skills they needed in computer skills in order to enter those programs. The first one we had was the Computer Support Technician Program, and that's offered at Seattle Central Community College. And so I worked very closely with the IT instructor for this course when we were creating the Onramp. And these are the skills he identified that he's seen our ESL students do. First is the keyboarding skills. So many of them don't know how to type, and that makes class just very slow because they need to be typing on the keyboard. Computer navigation skills, so knowing how to get to different places, opening files, knowing where their files are. Email, accessing online course content, which at the time was through Angel, but now is in Canvas. Copying and pasting was very important in those classes, and it was something that they struggled with. And then finally, recognizing file types. So these are some of the things that he identified that he would really like it if we could train these students before they reached his course. We also looked at the accounting program at North Seattle, which is an IBEST, and we mostly looked at their syllabi and their course descriptions and found that students in those classes are expected to access online course content. They need keyboarding skills, they need file management, and they need basic Excel. And finally, the Office Assistant Professional Program at Seattle Vocational Institute. From them, we found out a lot of the same things: keyboarding skills, computer navigation, the ability to open programs, save documents, and print. So we knew that these skills were going to be very important for our students once they moved into the IBEST programs. And even for students who don't choose to go into IBEST, they will certainly need these skills when they enter college courses. So we wanted to create a course that help meet these needs. So this is what we came up with. We're serving Level 3 ESL students, and our course meets 10 hours a week, which is 2 hours per day, and we meet in a computer lab. We have 2 instructors, and the way it's set up is that for the first hour of instruction, they have just one instructor, and then both of us are there for the second hour of instruction. And Jesse will talk to you more in a minute about what a day-to-day class looks like. In order to complete this program, students are expected to earn 80% in both language skills and 80% in computer skills. And then they're able to repeat the class up to 3 times. This is a model of how we're teaching really 3 things. We're teaching language. So in our curriculum, we've got reading, writing, listening, speaking, and grammar. We're teaching computer skills, and these are some examples: how to send an email, how to search for a job online, how to print, how to make a budget in Excel. And then we're also teaching strategies. And for these level 3 students, a lot of times this means organizing their information. So we give them a paper with some instructions on how to do something. We're teaching them how to organize that information, how to go back and find that information later when they need it, and just develop some study skills that will help them accomplish tasks that they're doing in class. So we teach all 3 of these things, and whenever possible we try to integrate the 3. So we give them a lot of tasks and a lot of projects that require language, computer skills, and in order to complete the task successfully, they also need to be using those strategies that they've learned about how to go back and find information, or how to successfully organize themselves. The course that we're now in our 4th quarter of the course, and it's changed quite a lot. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things that we've changed as we've gone. It's really common in content-based courses that the content takes over, and we definitely found that in our 1st quarter. We had a very small class of 7, I believe, and it was none of them had any computer experience at all, and it just became very, very focused on how to do things on the computer. And in the end, when we evaluated it, we decided that we hadn't been able to spend enough time on language. And so one of the things we've been working on is bringing that back into balance, having a better balance of language and content. We have moved from Angel to Canvas. We started out using Angel, and Angel had a really high learning curve for our students. Angel has a lot of clicks for everything. So to find your grades, you have to click about 4 times. In Canvas, it's been so much easier. Our students have been able to pick it up much, much faster because they just see the word grades, click in it, and there's the grades. So it seems to be a lot more intuitive. It's much simpler for the student, and that's been a really great improvement in the course to move to Canvas. I believe it seemed to me the first 2 quarters we used Angel, and it seemed like at that time teaching them how to use the course management system took up a really large chunk of probably the first month of the course. Now we just started a course 3 weeks ago with all new students, and they're already really comfortable with Canvas, so that's been much better. One of the issues with this kind of course is that students have different levels of computer skills coming into the course. So we found that some of our students are pretty comfortable. They can use the internet, they have email accounts, and then some of our students have really never touched a computer. And so we knew that we needed to be able to determine where students were when they came into the class. And we've gone through several different ways of doing this. We wanted students to fill out checklists to tell us what they know, and we've gone through several versions of them. But as it turns out, the checklists are not really very reliable. Students tend to say they can do something, but then when we observe them, they really can't do it very well, or it may be that there are large gaps in their knowledge. So, for example, a student might say, yes, I can use Microsoft Word, I'm great at Microsoft Word, but then they have the document open and you ask them to save it and they don't know where to go. So that's something that we found. So we're realizing that it's much better for us to assess students through observation in the beginning of the quarter. At the beginning, we were hoping to deal with these different skill levels by offering differentiated instruction. So the plan was to find out where everybody was and then kind of track them. Since we had 2 teachers, we thought we could separate them, teach different levels of skills to the 2. And it's turning out that doesn't work very well. Part of the problem is these big gaps that students do have in their knowledge, that while we've tracked beginning students to teach them how to save a file, this other group that we think knows how to use Word very well may not actually have mastered that skill either. So we've gone towards more of teaching everyone the same skills, and then giving them tasks, then what happens is that students who are better with computers finish those tasks sooner, and then we're able to teach them more complex skills as they complete those tasks. Teaching in a computer lab, we had to deal with a lot of classroom management issues because it's really difficult for anybody to not stare at a screen when it's in front of them. So as teachers, we've had to really develop some classroom management strategies, both for getting their attention, but also for helping students guide themselves when they've finished a task and other people in the class are still plugging away at it, helping them become better self-learners and to decide, okay, I'm finished, so now is a good time to practice my typing, or something like that. Jesse's going to talk about class.
I'm sorry about my voice. I have the thing that we all have. Can we answer any questions about design or changes, or should I just tell you a little bit about the course as it looks right now? Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. In the first quarter they did, and that it was she asked if we used a textbook. And do you want to speak about that?
Yeah. So we did find a textbook, and it was ESL for computers, I think.
Silver.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. And I thought it worked. So there were two things with it. So first, the language is a little bit difficult for our level 3 students. It did have a nice progression of tasks, I thought, and it worked pretty well in the first quarter. The second quarter, we ended up with students who had a few more computer skills than the first section had. And for them, it just felt like the book moved too slowly through those computer skills.
Right.
So we actually ended up creating a lot of our own materials. We received a grant last summer, and we created more of our own so that we could progress through computer tasks faster than the book was kind of allowing us to do.
So I have two questions. One is, am I understanding right that it's one Onramp for all three of those IPAS classes?
Yes.
And same thing as ESL level 3 in all subject areas?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not exactly true because students need to be at level 3 to enter, but they can repeat the class. So we sometimes get people who are repeating who are at a higher level. And then also there's we're just taking somebody, so if somebody is level 3 reading, writing, but listening and speaking is higher, they can still come into our class. So, and I should also clarify that when we say people who are repeating may be higher, those are students who are level 3 according to CASAs, not level 3 necessarily according to, yeah. So that makes sense.
So can you guys hear me okay? Let me tell you a little bit about the class as we're running it right now. This is our third quarter teaching together. Right now, I'm the language teacher in the first hour, and at the beginning of every quarter, Emily and I sit down and we make a plan for the quarter, and we decide each week what our grammar focus is going to be, what our vocabulary focus is going to be, and then what computer skill we're going to focus on for that week. And the grammar is based on the grammar curriculum our division has come up with, and then the course outcomes for level 3. Our level 3 is linked right now. It used to be listening, speaking, and reading, writing. And then we felt that we weren't getting enough reading in class. The students were doing a lot of reading for information, largely through the internet, but not a lot of extensive reading. And so this quarter we've added a reader to the class, and we do that on Monday and Friday. That's worked really well. And then in the second hour, Emily comes in and we usually focus on a computer outcome. And we try to choose a computer outcome that blends well with the language focus. So, for example, right now we're doing present simple and we're doing Microsoft Word because those tend to go well. We taught Microsoft Paint pretty early on because that's a pretty simple program when we were doing there is, there are, because they could draw pictures and then describe them using there is, there are. And if it's a more complex skill like the internet, we'll do that over a few weeks. So a couple things that we think have gone well. This was in the first week of our class this quarter. The grammar point was there is and there are, and we were talking about around town vocabulary like church, school, university, that kind of thing. And so in the first hour we had a regular language class. We were reviewing the vocabulary and there is and there are. And then in the second hour, Emily came in and she had the students listen to these riddles that she'd written about buildings based on our vocabulary sheet. So one example would be there are students, there is a teacher, there are tables, and then the students would say school. And then we put them in pairs, and they had their own riddle that they had to read and solve, and then read to a partner, and the partner had to listen and answer. And then finally, we put them, they logged into the website, which is Canvas, and we had done a discussion board before, but we thought, let's try it. And they had to write their own riddles, and then post it, and then respond to other people. And at this point, I think they've been logging into Canvas for a couple days, and we're doing very well. And so we just had them click on the discussion forum, and here was Emily's prompt, which is where she told them what to do. And like she said, we're really trying to teach to read directions instead of just teacher, you know, like trying to break that habit. And so we try to put as many directions as we can. And then the students wrote their riddles. So this one student said there are many trees, there are many benches, there's a statue. She posted it, and then the other student said it's a park. And then they went and they read each other's riddles, and then they responded. And this took maybe 10 minutes. So even though that was the computer portion in the second hour, we actually ended up only using the computer for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I thought that went well. And then another one we just did this week, and it ended up kind of spilling over into 2 days. We're working on present simple, and so in the first hour we were talking about that, especially when to use the S and when not to use the S. And then we had been kind of teaching Microsoft Word this week. They knew a little bit about formatting. And Emily came in with a sign that she created for a towing company, which was inspired by one of our students in the summer who had a towing company, and he was taking our class because he wanted to know how to create business cards and signs for his company. So we had the students look at it, and then they had to figure out what's the alignment, what's the font, and recreate it themselves on Microsoft Word to get some experience. I think we gave them like 10 minutes just to do that. And then we had them choose a business in pairs. And so we had assigned 4 businesses like language tutor, healthcare worker, a few different things. And they got together and they made a business plan. So they had the name of the business, the address, their services, and the services went back to present simple because they had to say like, we help you with blah, blah, blah. And then once they had their business plan, they got onto Microsoft Word and they followed directions to make a sign. And so what they were supposed to do is one person would say, write the name of our business, and that person would write the name of the business. And in general, that worked really well. What happens always is that one person's on the computer, they don't want to get off the computer and let the second person on, you know, and then you're like, give up the mouse, and they don't like to give up the mouse. But in general, it worked really well, and they traded off and they made their signs. And then here's some of the signs they made. So this probably took about 20 minutes in one class to come up with the plan and start the sign, and then about 20 minutes in the second day to finish the sign. So home healthcare aide, daycare, and language tutor. And then we have a printer in our room. We're really lucky. So they printed the signs, they put them up around the room, and then Emily had created a worksheet where they had to read the signs and get information from the signs, and then they wrote down the information, like what's the address and how much do they charge and that kind of thing. And we went back to Microsoft Word, and they opened Word, and individually they answered the questions in full sentences using present simple. And then they finished by saving it on a USB and then uploading it to Canvas. So that's kind of how we wove the language into the computer use. Although we have many great things in the class, we have challenges in the class and then as the class in part of the school in our program. One of them is enrollment. I don't know if you're having this issue, but the enrollment is dropping at our school and in our division. And we had 22 students last quarter, and we have 10 this quarter. So that's a big difference. We also have just 2 sections of all of our levels, but for level 3, we have 3. And so the students are spread among 3 sections. And then we've had as few as 6 students, we've had as many as 22, so quarter to quarter planning can be a little bit difficult. Another issue, I think Emily touched on this, students see ESL with computers and they think, oh, I like computers, and so they register for our class, but they come into the class already having met a lot of the outcomes. And really the students that need the computer class see computer and they don't want to take it because they're scared of computers. And so we have this self-selection issue happening. And the students that are good at computers are great, they're very helpful, but they don't really need us. And then we always have this issue where we'll spend like an hour, you know, reviewing the grammar, talking about grammar, but it's on a computer, and then they'll say, when are we going to learn grammar? You guys, we've been doing this. But they don't, because it's on a computer, they think they're learning a skill and not a language. And so we've tried really hard to work on having them understand that we're teaching them language, they're meeting the outcomes. We have a couple goals for the future. We have a couple problems too. We would love for what we're doing to be modeled in higher levels, especially pre-college, where they have to use Canvas in college. If they could do what we're doing in level 5 and get used to uploading and saving and all of that, that would be great, but we have a $50 computer lab fee. And so we get it paid for by our grant, it's specific to level 3. If they were to take it at level 5, they'd have to pay $75 tuition, which isn't feasible. And then we have the enrollment issue. And so we thought, well, maybe our Onramp class could be a requirement for the program. So if they entered at level 3 or moved through level 3, at least we would know they're moving through our program having these basic skills, so that a level 4 teacher could go in the computer lab for an hour and have expectations that the students would know this sort of thing. And then we've also thought maybe we should just have 2 sections of level 3 and one would be an on-ramp section. In our school, and I think it's the same, you have to be level 5 or your classes have to correlate in order to do on-ramp, IBEST. But our on-ramp is level 3, and so there's a gap. You know, they gain all these skills, but then they have a couple quarters when they're not using them prior to being in an IBEST class, and that's a little bit of an issue. And then again, with a little bit of the student disconnect, and Emily was speaking about this, a lot of students could stand to take our class more than once in terms of their computer skills, but they're like, no, I'm good, I've got it, because they've used a computer and they feel like they're okay. But they could use some more help. And the students that have stayed for 2 quarters, it's amazing. Like, it just clicks the 2nd quarter, and it didn't. They were treading water, and then it came together. And then they're able to help one another, which is great for them to be the person who's helping somebody else for the first time. There's a few things we'd like to do to help achieve those goals. Understandably, faculty are pretty wary of teaching computer skills to low-level students. They think it's pretty difficult. We have an ideal situation. We have 2 teachers, we have a computer lab, and we still have a lot of challenges, so I understand. But it would be great if the faculty could get behind teaching computer skills at a low level so that it's not hard every time, but it's just hard a little bit one time and then it gets easier and easier and easier. And then when they go to college, they have no problem. We'd also like to build student support. Last quarter we had a level 2 class come in and visit our class, and then our students were kind of ambassadors, and they were able to show their binder, which had a big grammar section to show, yeah, we do grammar in this class, and that went pretty well. And then we've also talked about in our program, if we had outcomes that were technology-based, like if we said, by the time you exit our program, you will be able to do all these things on a computer, that would help build a buy-in. Do you have any questions?
And I have the microphone.
I really appreciate your presentation. And my question really is that looking ahead to 2014, do you think that your model is convertible for low-skilled ABE students in an on-ramp to GED preparation model, where we're going to see some level of computer-based skills that are going to be required for those students' goals?
That's a really good question. I think it is. I think it is transferable. I work with GED students because I'm also the tutoring program coordinator, and they spend all this time practicing on the paper test, and then they have to go take the test on the computer, and it scares them, right? And so even though they were doing well on the paper test, they fall apart on the computer. And so I think if they were used to doing it every day in a classroom with a supportive teacher getting used to that, I think it would transfer.
Leveling is an issue at our school because we're leveling by ESL, right? Or we're leveling by ABE. We're not doing the leveling of the computer skill. Yeah. So it seems like piggybacking on there would be a good thing because you can only have so many assistants.
Yeah.
And other students are trying to help out too. So I know you said you talked about that and you're observing, but have you thought about giving like a pre-test and saying this is their computer skill level, and so this group might meet Monday, Wednesday, and a different skill might be a different day, or just curious? That's a good question. It's something that's come up where when you know what's best for the student, how much can you enforce that? So can we, if we during orientation students took like a computer skill test,
can we force students to take our class, even though we know it's best for them? You know, is that really the right thing to do? And then in terms of teaching different things on different days.
Yeah, so I think enrollment's been part of our issue with this, is that we designed this course with differentiated instruction, and then our first section, I showed up the first day excited, and there were 6 students. And you can divide 6 students, sure, but they all happen to be in the same place, and so it just hasn't worked out that we've been really able to separate. And then even students who seem very, you know, I wouldn't say that the majority of students have really strong computer skills, but every quarter there's been maybe 1 or 2 in each class that really just does not need to be there. And then the others, there may be quite a few who have some computer skills, but they do have really big gaps. And so I don't know, it seems like it's been really good for them to review even things they already know. And certainly since we're integrating language into all of the computer tasks, it's good practice for them too. So it's an interesting idea, having them only come certain days.
Yeah.
It's something to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.